What's up guys, welcome to the software engineering channel, and in today's video we are going to be taking our Slack loan application even further. Up until now we have the UI running. If you've not followed us up until now, I would put a link to the playlist to the few videos you would have to watch to get to this point that we're in. But if you followed up until this point, kudos to you, man. Kudos to you. And today I would like to show you what we are going to be working on today. We're going to be building out the one-to-one messaging feature. As you can see on my screen, we have 3 clients, and you can see those 3 clients listed out here. We built this feature some time ago. You can get the video and work on it. Now, the way the one-to-one messaging is going to work is that I can easily check out this particular client. I can click on the client and you can see that beautiful loader that I just showed, and this shows that we do not have any conversation yet, right? So I can easily say, hey, what's up, Zion? And you can see that immediately my message goes out to Zion. Now let's check out for Zion. This is not Zion's account. Let's look out for Zion's. This is Zion's. Oh, so Zion is actually myself, right? So you can actually message yourself as well, just like private DM. But let's check out Lola over here. So you would also notice that we have previous conversation with this personality, all right? And so if we also go to Zion, this is this account, Lola's account. This is Zion Lloyd. Now, if I click on Zion Lloyd's DM, you will notice that we've had previous conversation. All right, so I can easily answer to his question about Zebra project. So Zebra project is 80% done. You would notice that immediately the message actually popped out here. All right, and I can express my satisfaction by sharing out an emoji. I'm so happy about this. Excited about this. You can see that immediately we have this pop-up. All right, how about we dive right in, guys? And so to take this much further, first thing I have to do is actually clear out all of these dummy messages, so we can go straight into our chat container and clear it off. Just gonna leave just one instance of a message component. Save that. The next thing we're going to do is to go into our side menu. That looks like where we have majority of work to do. Go into our side menu, and I think we have menus as well, and in menus we have channels. Okay, so let's get into our channels. That's actually where the work is. Get into our channels. Each time we click on a particular client, there is a URL that is being formed. If you hop back to the beginning of the video, you would notice that each time we clicked on a particular user, a URL is being formed, and that URL is what depicts that we are actually conversing with this particular user. And within that URL is lies some information on that query parameter, and that's how we're able to depict that we're conversing with a particular user. First changes we're going to make is to remove this. We don't need this anymore. Let's get our formatting right. Don't need that anymore. And do we need this? I think we're just going to pull this up, break this off. take this out. Don't need this anymore. So we're going to be taking a lot more stuff out, guys. So just try to follow me and understand why we are taking them out. And I'm going to try as much as possible not to be fast about my typing, so you can understand what exactly it is that we are doing line by line. Okay, so as I said, the first thing we are going to try to do is to form a URL for our individual users. I might use the word clients. That's a technical jargon. I might use that word. What it basically means is our individual users. Like you saw in the demo, we had 3 users. That 3 users is actually synonymous to 3 clients in our case for now. Okay, so let's say user. We're going to be making a query string. Say clients DM, because we know that anytime a user is clicked upon within this space, actually relates to sending a message, a personal private message to the user. So you have email, all right. So we're also going to be introducing a nav link. Okay guys, so what we've done is to create a URL for our user, constructing the URL by the user's information, and all of this information are piece of data that we're actually going to be needing on the other side. All right, so once the user is clicked upon, we would have to get this information from the query string, act upon that information so we can have that one-to-one functionality working. All right, so that's why we have this, and we introduce the nav link as well. The nav link is going to help us toggle from one URL to another, but there's this extra feature that it gives you, right? You're able to know what particular link is active. All right, so we're going to be leveraging on that feature, and that's why we are using an already built URL component. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be doing is to actually update our model. So you'll notice that our user listing detail rather is not the same as what we have now. So let's go into that. Okay, so we're going to be adding one more property, which is the user ID. Now let's go to our chat hub. Let's go to our chat hub and make some updates on our chat hub. All right. Now, when a particular user is connected, there are certain things that we want to change. And also when our user is being sent over to our client, there are certain things that we also want to change. So that's what we're going to be working on now. The very major thing is the user's connection key. That's one major thing that we're going to be changing. There will be a need to append the user ID with the connection key. And the reason for that is just so that on the client side, when we want to initiate the one-to-one conversation, there is obviously need to create a message class. All right. So you'll notice that our message class has the from user ID, to user ID, chat, blah, 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 and all of this good stuff. So there is a need to get the from user ID and the to user ID. So we might be tempted at that point to make a call to our database and fetch the information from the database. But one prevalent issue that I've found out is that it is very important for you to see how you can make database call on setup. all right, not when you're actually actively performing the action, like in our case, wanting to send a one-to-one message. Performance drop at that point when you're trying to still hit the database and do your findings before the message is delivered. All of the stuff, that's not wise. So what we are trying to do is to get as much information as we can get beforehand, so that we don't do database call when we are performing our action. I hope that makes sense to you. So in this light, we are also going to be checking out for our users information from here. Basically, the reason why we are going to database is to actually get our users ID. That's the reason why we're having to hit the database. And as I said, it makes all the sense for us to hit the database now and have the information we need, so that when we are performing the action, we wouldn't need to hit the database. So let's do get by ID, user ID. Okay, that's cool. All right, so we can append the user ID to this by saying user db dot ID. Okay, so that becomes the connection key of our clients. And notice that this connection key is what we are actually sending over, but we'll get to that. I'll show us how that works in a bit. Okay, so we actually have to do this in a couple more places where we are storing the connection key, but we'll get there, and we can actually easily just do a copy and paste. Otherwise, we're going to have issues finding our user. Okay, so the way it works is, once our user lands into our application, the first method the user calls automatically is unconnected sync. So once the connection is started, this particular method is invoked on the server side, which is on our hub basically. And this particular method is this. All right, so what this does is to get all the user within our connection manager. And if you go into this get user within our connection manager, you'll see how it works. So it actually returns all the connections, does this and calls this on the client side, and it sends this to all clients. As you can see, clients.all. All right, it sends this to all clients, and it calls this particular method on the client side. So if we go to the client side, and we know that method is actually implemented within our channels component. All right, so this method is what receives all of those information. Another very quick change that we're going to make is to get users list. So if you understand how this works, what this does is to actually save the keys and then save the connection that is tied to that key. Basically, all we need is actually the connection key, because we actually do not need the connection. What we need is actually the connection key, because that's where all of our information actually ties for that user with that connection ID. So we're going to change this just a little bit. Now we're going to be sending out an enumerable string type. We're going to be taking out this. All right, so we're going to be getting out our keys, and we're going to be doing a toList, and that's all right. So this is what we're going to be sending out. So let's go back to our channels. We have to work on this as well, so we know we are expecting a list of string. All right, okay, so now we have to also add our user ID, because we know we are getting that information as well from our data array. Okay, so we are going to run a check before we actually add the user to the list. We want to be sure that the user does not exist. So let's give this a quick run and be sure everything actually works as expected. Okay, there's a problem already. Oops. It's supposed to be a comma here. These are the keys. Okay, so we don't need to do this since you are accessing the string directly. So okay, that should be it. The application is building its errors, the errors. Local user. Okay, so this ought to be URL. Wow, sorry. Must have seen it. Okay. All right, that's it. Our project is building. Okay, so let's check this out. Okay, all right, so this is cool, guys. This is what we're actually expecting. So you'll notice that a URL is formed for this particular user, and also this is the same is going to be the case when we load up another user. All right, so you'll notice that a URL is actually formed for this user as well, and you'll see that they have different user IDs. All right, so this is what is going to help us actually grab the information of the user we are trying to message, and that's how it works. All right, now the next thing we need to, before we actually move on to the next thing, one quick fix that we have to do is to work on our URL on our index page. So let's go to our index page. So this time we also want our index page to understand this pattern of URL, and we're going to call this parameter resource param. And what I mean by resource param is basically these guys below. All right, so we have dm zioncode@gmail.com for SignalR. Those are resource parameter, and we're going to make this available across board. We're going to make that resource parameter available across board. All right, and the way we are going to do that is to use a particular feature in Blazor called cascading value. So cascading value is a component. All right, if you've worked with React before, you should understand the concept of higher order components. All right, so that's how cascading value works. It's more like an higher order component that wraps around other child components and makes whichever value, whichever property is attached to it, available to other child components automatically. Beautiful stuff, guys. Now what this means is this value parameter is going to be available in all of our child components. So that makes it beautiful to work with. All right, so the next thing we're going to be working on now is our chat container. So what happens when a user actually clicks on another user to send a DM to? All right, that's what we're going to be working on. So let's pull over to our chat container real quick. Here's our chat container, still very crude and dry. We're going to be transforming it in a bit. All right, so let's declare a code section, and the first thing we want to do is to fetch out our cascading parameter. and that's how we access this guy over here. Okay guys, so this is just us making declaring the properties that we are going to be using within our chat container. Let's pull this up a bit. All right, so our user email is actually going to be a parameter. Remember what we said, we're trying to draw out as much information as we are able to get. All right, so we do not need to start making a call to the database at every point. So that's the reason for all of this manipulation. All right, and also you'll notice that we have a new property called message pack. Now what this message pack is going to be doing basically is to help us compile the previous message that we've had with that particular user. All right, that's what's going to be doing. So very quickly, let's instantiate that model called message pack. All right, it's just a DTO that houses our message. Let's do that real quick. Okay, so basically this is us trying to create a DTO of what exactly we need from our message model in the database. All right, because we do not want to expose all the information we have, so we're basically creating a DTO of what exactly it is that we need, and that forms our message pack. Okay, so you would also notice, so we have to bring this in as well. Let's bring this in. Okay, Visual Studio is really showing me. All right, that works. Okay, so also you'll notice we have a parameter here, so that means we have to get that parameter into our components. And if you know, obviously you should have known the way this works. I haven't followed this video for a while. All right, so this is going to be coming from our component level. All right, so it means we need to get this guy from our components. Okay, so basically the way we can do that is to say username. So you notice that our components now expects a username, a user email rather. All right, so Okay, so I can actually just go over to copy some snippets that we already have, which is this. Can just get this copied. And notice, guys, we are really not all about clean code currently. All right, so all of this is basically our make it work solution. Okay, in case you're beginning to get concerned about repetition, solid principles, and all of those good stuff, what we're trying to do is to get our functionalities to work. I'm going to dedicate one particular video to cleaning up all of this that we are building. This is actually where we need to do one particular thing, which is to receive private message. All right, and we need to add that to as a method. All right, we need to add that as a method in our up connection for this component. So it's a component by component basis thing. All right, so you notice that in this particular component, the method we added was to actually receive the user list, because this is where we have to populate that list. Right now, because we have to have conversations here, all right, this is where we're going to deploy our messages. So we need to receive private messages, both messages previously and messages currently at the moment. All right, this is where we receive all of those messages. All right, so that's what we're going to be working on now. Tying that up connection. It's going to be a type of message pack. So we call it receive private message. So I'm going to be expecting a message back. So what we basically do here is to say this dot user message dot add, simply add message back. What we also want to do is to, at all time, we want to order our messages, so we can have the most recent message below. All right, so I can say order by descending, and we're going to be ordering our messages by dates. Okay. All right, so we're going to be messaging our dates, and when we are done, we want to invoke state change. Change so our components can reload. Beautiful, beautiful. So last but not least that we have to do is to do this up connection. All right, so so this becomes a client-side method that our orb can call at any time, at our server side can call at any time to send data to, right? And it dates down to what the technology really is about at the core, right? It's for the server to be able to deploy information down to the client without the client making a request for it, right? So that's basically how it all works. Okay, so let's populate our messages with our list of message. Okay, so let's do a for each, quick for each. SG, these are messages. And our message component is pretty crude right now with a lot of hard-coded stuff. So what we want to do is to be able to get all of those information as an input parameter. Now this is supposed to hold our picture URL, but for now we're just going to allow this picture stay for now. All right, because there's this quota that you have on hitting Google's API, and each time we load up that picture, you're actually hitting Google's API, and for some reason Google is shouting at me. All right, so for consistent sake, and for the sake of wanting a picture to always show up there, we're going to use our dummy picture for now until we figure out how to save all of those pictures locally. Okay, so let's pop in our message component right in. So we have our we can have our msg dot, okay, let's have this msg dot message. Let's have our username msg dot username, and let's just pass this anyways, it doesn't hurt. msg dot picture. Okay, we have that. Okay, so added with this, a couple of things that we should also take into consideration. This height should be changed. So let's just have 550 px, and you need to be sure that this is running actually. This is your npx, your Tailwind watcher. Yeah, you need to be sure this is running. If yours is not running, all you need to do is just to run this particular code snippet, all right, in your terminal. Because if this is not running, it's actually not going to build into your proper CSS file. So you need to be sure that is running. So there are a couple of checks that we want to do just to have a good user experience. So we want to say first, we want to be sure that there are messages. All right, if there are no messages, there are certain decisions that we should take. All right, so there are two things that can happen if there are no messages. It's either the case that there are no messages because we just landed into let me run this actually. Okay, I'll just explain this. All right, it's either there are no messages because we just landed into Slack, and on this note, what we want to do is we want to display a picture, and say welcome to Slack. All right, and it's either there are no messages because the client or the user we clicked on has not struck any previous conversation with us. So those are two points cases. All right, so we have to code that up. Say string It's null or empty. So it's either our resource parameter is empty, and if our resource parameter is actually empty, that's okay. What we actually want to do in that case is to have a customized message that says welcome to Slack. Okay. Let's just add a few TailwindCss stuff in here. Alright, so I want to display an image. Just basically going to display Slack image. Okay. I'm going to set the width to let's do 48. And I'm going to have an H2 that says welcome to Slack Messenger. All right, let's check that out and see that that works. Let's see if we have any issues. Let's implement iDisposable. Okay, let's implement iDisposable. We already have it here, so we can easily do copy and paste. Want to hope that solves the problem. Okay, let's do a refresh on this, and yeah, so you can see this. So we have welcome to Slack, and this is happening because obviously we had not clicked on anything here. So our resource parameter is currently empty, so we have welcome to Slack, and we would also have to change this. All right, so we'll get to that, which is our chat header. All right, so let's just quickly work on that. So you can have public property as well, but string. Let me say chat header title. So our default chat header title can be let's just say slacking with Blazor, TailwindCss, and SignalR. All right, so that's going to be our default chat header, and because we have a component here called chat header, what we just need to do is to make sure that the component actually receives a property. All right, instead of hard coding Blazor engineering in here. So this is the way this works, guys. It's just so seamless, so cool to work with, and in my opinion, it's actually a very beautiful technology. It has its own loopholes, but I'm definitely sure we can bank on it. That the .NET guys are going to do a good job on getting all of its loopholes fixed. But I've totally learned a lot, and personally I've enjoyed it. I think there are some prospects in here. Okay, so this is going to be chat header title, and that means this guy is expecting a chat header title. This chat header title is going to map to our chat header title. Okay, cool. So that means we can go into our components and get chat header title mapped with chat header title. Let's save that real quick. Okay, so we have slacking with Blazor, SignalR, TailwindCss.
we intend that this changes. So immediately we click on a particular client, this should change. All right, so let's go into, so all of this is going to be happening in our chat input. All right, our chat input is actually where the one-to-one messaging functionality actually lies. All right, so let's go into our chat input and do some work on it. Okay, so our chat input is pretty bare bone now. Obviously, the first thing we're going to do is to get our code section out. What we have done here on our UI is to be able to use our enter key. All right, so you notice that we do not need to have any button, but once we type a message, we can press enter and it actually goes in. All right, but there's a problem. You see that our form is actually trying to submit. All right, so we have to fix that issue. All right, so instead of using form, we're going to use an edit form. An edit form is basically it's basically a component in Blazor that's created for you already, and it's usually tied in with a model. Right, so we'll have to make a particular model for it, and a model here is actually a message, because everything that comes off it ties to that. All right, so we can model is message, and going to have onValid submit. Gives us that ability to create a custom function. So we're going to take advantage of that custom function to stop that submission. All right, so we've taken advantage of that to stop that loading functionality, because we do not want it to load each and every time we click enter. All right, okay, let's see, enter. All right, that works. Okay guys, we're going to have to break this off. It's almost an hour video long, and I'm going to shoot the part 2 right away. You can have them right together, uploaded on YouTube. If you're new to this channel, we do all things software engineering, and you can do well to subscribe so we can learn together, grow together, and code good systems together. See you on the next one, guys.